Hello everyone and welcome back to Southern Wealth. I hope you guys are doing very well. If you do enjoy the content, please consider dropping that like and subscribe. As you guys know, it greatly helps the channel. So, a lot of developments, big week ahead. So I'll try to compile everything that I want right now. So let's start first with the big elephant in the room, the big EU trade deal. Um, I was expecting the EU to put a better fight because basically they have a massive surplus. They have a massive surplus on the goods side, but the US has massive surplus on the services side. So some of the services could have been targeted, but the issue is that the EU basically throughout the week burned the bridges with China. And as I've been covering here, God knows, since the beginning of all this conversation, and I was making reference to 2024, 2023, etc., the big European economies have been struggling quite a bit. Think about Germany, France, Italy. So many of the big economies have been struggling, with the exception maybe of the Spanish and the Portuguese. And then, of course, you have all other issues within the countries that I, as you can imagine, cannot say here. And then you have all the spending on defense that I've been arguing, as the economists are so happy with it. And they're saying, oh, it's going to be great for the economy. I said, spending is not equal across the board. When a country builds a tank, that doesn't really benefit me or you. Yeah, there's spending involved, sure. But what is the output of the spending? It's not just about the spending the money. What is being made from the spending? That's very important. But in any case, and I mean, just for you to have an idea how bad it was, the Financial Times, which is 99.9% against Trump, conceded that the US and Trump had a massive win. And even during the interview, they asked Ursula from the EU. They asked her, okay, we've heard 750 billion energy purchases, 600 billion investments, billions and billions of US equipment they're gonna buy for defense, and 15% tariff across all goods, right? So what is the US conceding to Europe? So that was the question. What is the US conceding to Europe? And the answer was, oh no, we were talking here about rebalancing trade, and that was not really the focus. So basically, nothing. That's the answer. The European Union conceded, the US conceded zero. That part to me was surprising because of the services surplus that I've mentioned that the US had with Europe. I thought Europe was going to get something. But, I mean, this comes out of the Japanese deal. So now people start to think, okay, the Canadians will follow, the Koreans will follow, blah, blah, blah. So that's what is being now envisaged for the future. But this has been put in place since the Japanese deal. And people are very surprised today. Why isn't the stock market, exploding higher? First of all, it's a very volatile week coming in, and a week with a lot of moving parts. I'm just going to give you a brief list in a little while. So that's number one. Number two, we are coming out of nothing but positive weeks. So we also need to breathe a little bit in the market. Number three, when the Japanese deal was signed, or when the Japanese deal was agreed, that is the benchmark for the other deals. The market understood it. When the news started to come out that the US and the EU were approaching a deal, the market started to price it in. And then you have limited upside because the majority of the upside's already been priced in. And then today also, when Trump said that most countries get 15 to 20% global tariff, so basically for all the countries on the planet, that's something that the markets don't like to hear. I get the feeling that it's going to be 15, if you ask me. But the markets will, in my view, think, okay, but with how many countries does the US actually trade? Because if they have like 50 million trade with a small country in the middle of nowhere, do you really care about 15% tariff? No. doesn't really make a difference. Now we are still with the argument that tariffs will create inflation. I don't understand. This is going to be one of those things that you have to see it, and the inflation is not going to come. And then people say, oh, actually, maybe it's not inflationary, or maybe there are more than one moving part when it comes to inflation, which has been my argument from day one, is that you're not paying attention to commodities like oil, you're not paying attention to deregulation, you're not paying attention to reduction of taxes. A lot of it is moving in one direction, which is lowering the cost. So if the tariff kicks in, my point is, how much of it will the companies absorb in order to keep their dominance in the market? So that's question number one. It's not such a black and white kind of thing. Then, can those companies negotiate some things with the suppliers in order to lower that side of the cost so they can absorb more of the tariff cost over here so they don't have to increase prices? My point being, these things are very complex. This is the problem with economists. This is why they always get it wrong. Because they think that the economy is like a chessboard. You move this piece and that piece does that. No. This is a very complex. I don't pretend to understand half of it. But I can realize, and to be humble, that the things are not so automatic like all these financial experts and economists make it sound. And finally, on this topic, I wanted to discuss something. Now I've talked about this before, but it's been a while, so it's good to refresh. What did I tell you? As soon as the deals come in, what has been my position? Let's get the deals. Let's revisit the whole thing within 1 year. How are the trade deficits looking? How is inflation looking? How is tariff revenue looking? That was my point. And how are the investments in the US actually developing? Meaning not just the commitments, but actually developing. So those were my 4 points. Let's give it a year. Let's get back here in, call it October, November 2026, and let's analyze the production of the deals, what happened to the trade deficit, what is happening to the tariff revenue, what is happening to inflation, and what is happening to actual investments starting to kick in the economy. That's been my position. Let's wait and see. But I already see it on Twitter today, and you're going to see this everywhere across social media. So first was the tariffs will create massive inflation, it's going to be a complete economic disaster. Then it was Trump chickening out. And I said, be careful with the term chickening out because the deals have not been signed. So far, the big deals that I've been seeing is the US gets everything and the other countries get nothing. So are the other countries chickening out? Oh, okay. So the narrative is chickening out. But because that narrative is now being faced with facts, which are the complete opposite of the narrative, now it's, the deals have been made, they're very good for the US, but they're fake. They're not going to happen. The deals are not going to happen. The next stage will be, the deals will happen, but will be worse than people initially thought. And then, as I suspect that the money is going to pour in, it's going to be, the money is coming in, the deals are doing very well for the US, but the money is not being well employed, or a better deal maker could have signed even a better deal. So the deal is not good enough now. The deal that, remember, was non-existent and was impossible to achieve. So we move from the Trump was destroying the US, followed by it's not possible to achieve these deals, followed by the deals were achieved but they're going to be terrible for the US, followed by the deals are good for the US but they're fake. And then now, so we've done these steps, and now it's going to be the deals are fake, the deals are worse than people think, the deals will not yield what people expect. And then when you give a little bit of time, actually the deals are yielding all of these. Yeah, but it could have been better. The money is now being squandered. It's not going to be used well. Why is not repaying the debt? Why isn't it not repaying the debt? So now we're going to move into the usage of the money. So first of all, we're going to keep a little while with these. The deals are fake. Then we're going to move into the deals will not yield what is expected, and then we're gonna get the deals could have been better, even better, and the money is being squandered. So that's gonna be the last stage of the thing. So it's why am I saying this? Does this really matter for our investment? No. What have I been saying from day one? The more you talk about the zombie virus, the more you talk about inflation, the more you talk about tariffs, and then on the positive side, the more you talk about trade deals, the more you talk about this and that and the other, the less impact it has, because the more it's out there, the more accustomed the market becomes to it, which means the more or the less impact it's having on everyone's lives. That's it. So today the market reaction was a little bit mixed. So Nasdaq, S&P doing well, Russell and Dow dropping a bit. And now this week we have US GDP, the Fed meeting, PCE, which is the Fed's favorite inflation metric, advanced trade in goods, ADP, the job report on Friday. We have massive amounts of data, massive. So I do expect a lot of volatility this week. I don't care. I have my positions made. I get into a few lottery tickets here and there to try to catch a few narratives, and I'm okay. I'm happy to see that the pulse chain ecosystem is gaining some life. That is normal. Ethereum is also gaining some life. And I've already told you, because this is very important, Bitcoin is at 118K or 117.8, whatever. So very close to 118. 3 weeks ago, 118 was extremely bullish. Now people are saying the cycle is over. Ethereum just crossed overnight 3,900. We know when these CME gaps open, most of the times they get filled, right? So we opened another CME. We seem to want to close it. It's fine. It's not a big deal. I've said this before as well. There's a good chance, I would give it, call it 40% chance, that Bitcoin will retest the 112 to 114 level. So 112 to 114. Perfectly fine if it does it. I would say, am I expecting it? I would say it's not as likely. I think it's more likely that we go first to 140K or so. But it's possible that we do drop to 112 to 114. Would that be bullish? Yes. My point being, 118 3 weeks ago was great. 118 today feels like the world is super sad about it. That's bullish. What they're failing to understand is that the price keeps on going up, and the feeling that people had at 70 is the same they're having at 110. I can bet you, if we go to 112, your Twitter or your X will be filled with Bitcoin's next stop is 80K. I can bet you whatever you want that you're going to start to see that. And it's amazing because people just don't pay any attention. Global liquidity is at all-time highs. Did we have some, you remember we talked about this, there were some brief periods where yields were shooting up and the dollar was shooting up as well. So that's tightening of financial conditions. There was a little period where inflation also got up to, in trueflation, to 2.2, 2.3, and now it's back to 2. So we had periods of not so smooth, and we know the crypto cycle is not so smooth. The funny part is that Ethereum is close to 3,800. People feel bearish. That's great. The short positions are still through the roof, and people just don't understand how that is fuel for the fire. They really don't understand, which is good. They think net record short positions is a bad thing. No, record long positions is a bad thing, because if the price would be 4,000 and we had record long positions, who's left to buy? Everybody's already leveraged long in the system. But when the vast majority is net short and by huge amounts, that's the fuel for the rocket. I like the pulse chain ecosystem, always liked it. I think it will do very, very well. I think so. I have PLS, PLSX, X, ETHEREUM, and ICOSA on both chains, and the incentive token. And I have a little bit of PDI as a lottery ticket, 7G, but 7G is not doing that well. I mean, I consider it a loss. Maybe it will recover. I hope so. I have no animosity. It's a lottery ticket. Can go to 0, can go to 1,000,000. That's the point of it. You don't always win, but every time you win really big. Andy, Opie, Boppy, O'Malley has been a big dud, as I've told you, but Barn has been doing quite well for me based on my point of entrance. And yeah, so my bet is Ethereum will do very well, so Pulse Chain will do very well, so Ethereum and Pulse Chain related coins will do, and memes on Ethereum, for example, will do very, very well. I like the ones with strong communities, coins that already went down 95%, and they're still here with a vibrant community and doing very well. Could I have picked that coin or that coin that would do better? Sure. That's always the case in every cycle. I can always find you a coin that you could have bought on a certain day at a certain hour that would do very, very well. Anybody can do it. But that's, you're talking history, you're not talking how to set up for the future. Basically, that's my point. So in summary, I think good things ahead. And I've said this before, and I want to make this clear. If I tell you Bitcoin will go to 135, 140K today, it's not going there today. But if I tell you, as of today, that this price action will happen, you will say, oh my God, that's extremely bullish. I would be very happy if that happened. I agree. But I'm going to tell you something that's going to, you'll understand my way of thinking, and you'll remember me when this happens. There's going to be a time where Bitcoin's going to be 140K, and the feeling will be bearish. You heard me well. If I tell you today Bitcoin's going to go to 140K, everybody's very happy. And I'm telling you that Bitcoin's going to drop to 140K, and everybody's going to be as pissed as they were at 100K when it dropped to 100K. I said this before. There's going to be a day, and I remember Bitcoin was 24K 370 something. Don't ask me the last number, but I remember the day that I uploaded that video. This was 2023. I said, one day, Bitcoin will fall to 100K, and you will feel very bearish. When it dropped from 110 to 100, everyone was going crazy. And then I said, you see, it's always the same thing. It's really always the same thing. It's just that it's hard, man. I get it. Volatility, our brains are not made to deal with it. It's very painful. It's very easy to buy the green and sell the red. That's what your brain wants to do. But much like when your body wants to eat sugar and you should eat healthier foods, it's the same thing for your brain. And with that, thank you very much for support, guys. Don't forget, none of this is financial advice. This is my journey, my opinion. If you don't agree with me, tell me in the comment section. Tell me that I'm an idiot and that I don't know anything and I'm gonna lose all my money. This is all a disaster. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one, and pay attention to that week. It's gonna be an interesting week. And I think August will probably be, quite the quiet month. July tends to be quite the happy green month. August, not really. September we should hit. Oh, by the way, I wanted to say this. For all the people predicting tops and all of that, I'm very confident that in the beginning of September, beginning to mid-September, we're gonna have a substantial correction in Bitcoin, potentially 20% plus. And it will make you guess if that is the final top or not. And that's going to be the decision to be made. But I do expect early to mid-September a big correction in Bitcoin, followed by Ethereum and the alts and the memes, etc. And maybe that's the end of the first altcoin season, or early to mid-September will be the correction on Bitcoin. Probably Ethereum and alts will run a little while, and potentially a lot of people will be calling for the end of the cycle. I wouldn't be surprised that we correct in September to October, and then we start ramping up. People still don't believe it, and maybe we have one final altcoin season going into Q1 2026. To be honest, it's hard to say. Now we're starting to enter the stage where it's almost month by month. We're keeping an eye on those big indicators, And with that, guys, thank you very much for your support. Don't forget, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.